and let's talk about bar and bat mitzvah photography, why I do it. So let's start by this. I just got back from WPPI, the trade show in Las Vegas a couple of weeks ago, and the focus is wedding and portrait photography, and everybody's fighting for the wedding business. And I have not actually focused on the wedding business. I focused on bar and bat mitzvah because for me, it just kind of happened by chance. 17 years ago or whatever it was, somebody asked me as a favor to photograph their daughter's bat mitzvah, and I was like, no, I don't want to do that. At the time, I wasn't even a professional photographer, and they convinced me to do it. And now, 300 bar mitzvahs later, here I am. But it's a great business. Unlike the wedding business, it's first of all, wedding business, to get into it is very expensive because to try to buy ads on Google Ad Space or try to advertise in different wedding venues, it's very expensive to do that. It's really crowded. There's tons of photographers that are trying to focus on the wedding business, and it's a lot of stress. Anybody who's photographed a wedding understands the stress of that. It's the biggest day of their lives. They have a lot of expectations, especially the bride and her mother, and this is a lot of pressure. Whereas with the mitzvah market, it's not as crowded. Although I was always surprised at WPPI how many photographers shot bar and bat mitzvah. And it was intriguing to me because I really didn't know that it was that popular, but it is. But it's still not as crowded as the wedding business. It's there's a lot of when I say here more in the crowd, I mean when you're shooting a bar mitzvah, and if you do a good job at it, who else is at that event? Well, it's a bunch of other Jewish people with same age kids. So it's a good revolving business. I haven't advertised in 8 years, and I book 3 years out in advance. So it's a good business. Word of mouth is everything to me. Again, I don't advertise. I just do what I do. People see the quality of the work and tell their friends. And so it's a great business once you get your foot in the door to keep going with that. As I mentioned, I book out really far in advance. Right now, I'm booking events into 2025 already. And when it comes to weddings, you generally don't hear people planning their weddings 3 years in advance. So it's a good business in that respect. I love photographing this stuff. It's fun to do. You have a bunch of 13-year-old kids that are having a good time. Yeah, there's a little bit of stress in the morning before they read the Torah, which is hard to do because they're learning Hebrew for 6 months or more to do this. A lot of pressure for them, but it's still a lot of fun. It's not a wedding. The kids are really great. Most of the time we have a lot of fun with them. It's not nearly as stressful as a wedding, which I actually enjoy that because when people stress out in front of me, that means that you tend to stress out a little bit too, and you don't want to do that, right? Because the minute you stress, they stress, and that's what you get back in front of the camera. So they're fun parties to go to. And when I started out, there were smaller parties. Now that I've built my business, I'm doing some really big parties. But even the small ones are fun. It doesn't matter. It's just a happy moment. I like photographing happy moments, and that is a joy to do. And so I find that like one of the great reasons to be in this business is to share those great moments with those families. So let me jump forward here. Why is it not moving? Come on, PowerPoint, you can do this. There we go. Sorry, we're going to jump around. Being a photographer. So one of the misnomers, and this happened to me when I started the business, I thought, I'm going to become a photographer and do a lot of bar mitzvah and bat mitzvah because then I can just do work on Saturday and the rest of the week I just relax and maybe edit some photos from that when they order those. It's not the way it is at all. So be aware of the fact that being a photographer is all of the things that you see on the slide. It is photographer, shipping and receiving, a social media guy, a marketing person, secretary, editor, shooter. I mean, you do everything. And so one of the challenges is just kind of trying to stay ahead of that and try to juggle the 20 different things that are asked of you. And so when you think that you're going to work for, let's say, 1 day a week, it's not. It's a 7-day a week. It's a lot of time that goes into it. So just be aware of that this is not something that's for the faint of heart. So what is a typical timeline when you're doing photos for a mitzvah? Well, you do portraits in the morning. This is the way I typically work. Now, this is assuming that you're allowed to photograph the service. Reformed temples, you can. Conservative and Orthodox temples, you cannot. So you want to find out at that temple if you're allowed to photograph the actual service itself. But if you can, I do portraits in the morning. If you can't shoot the service, I do rehearsal on Thursday or Friday, and I don't show up at all until the party. But typically, it's portraits in the morning. I usually start around 9 a.m. if the service starts around 10:30. So I shoot for about an hour, give them a little bit of a breathing space in between, and then they go into their service. Photograph the service is done in the back. I'll talk about that in a little bit here. In silent mode, not moving around. So you just kind of capture whatever's happening. I do shoot the lunch. A lot of times they'll do a lunch. Obviously, some of this is pre-COVID. During COVID, they weren't serving food, or half the time they weren't even in temple. We'll talk about that. But then I shoot a little bit of lunch because I want to tell the story of the day. I do shoot the party. The parties are fun, and I shoot from the beginning of the party, or actually even before the party starts. I'll get detail shots, shoot the party, and go all the way to the end. And then my goal is to deliver those images as quickly as possible. Now, I set the bar really high. My timeline actually is a little different than this typical timeline. So I tend to push myself really hard when I do this, and I tend to go overboard because I want to over deliver for my client all the time. So let's see if I can move to the next slide. Come on, you can do it. All right. Here's my timeline. My timeline is I do portraits in the morning. I do photography at the service, shoot a little bit of lunch. Then I jam home. I cull through those images. It might be about 1,200 images. I cull through those. I retouch 5 or 10 of the best ones. I send it to the family and I say, okay, here's your best images with my watermark. And they're only about 900 pixels. So they're not, going to print those, but they can share them on social media because I'd rather them share my images with my logo than some really bad images taken with their phone. Then I print matte and frame on my Canon Pro 1000 printer that's sitting right next to me, the best image of either the kid or the family, and I bring that to them as a gift. Then I turn around, I get all that done, I jam over to the party, I shoot the party. I'll do a same-day slideshow if they want of the best images from the first half of the day to show during the first half of the party. And then after a couple hours, they've seen those looping, I tear them down, I build another slideshow of the best images of the first half of the party to show during the second half of the party. And really what that is that's my marketing, right? Because then everybody who's at that party is seeing the quality of my work of the images. These are just raw, unretouched images, but they're seeing those and they're like, wow, these are really great, hopefully. And then they call me a couple weeks later and say, hey, our child's having their mitzvah in another year. Are you available? So, and then when I get home at night, after the party's over, it's now 11:30 or midnight or something. I might edit another 5 or 10 for them, and I'll send them those and say, here's my favorite images from the party tonight, or it might be first thing in the morning. And then I deliver the gallery the next day. I'm really quick. So here's a picture here of a party. You'll see the slideshow that's running above them, and that's running off a projector, either my projector or one of the venue. So as they're having fun partying, they're able to actually see the images from the earlier part of the day. There's different types of venues. So there is the venue for services in temple, not usually in the home, but during COVID, this happened quite a bit. So you'll have, sometimes services will be in the temple, but sometimes they'll be at a different venue, or inside or outside. And so you have to be prepared as a photographer to shoot in any environment. So this is a temple in San Francisco, a rather large one, where I photographed. This is 2 weeks ago. And so very big room, you're required to shoot from the balcony. So you can't get a low shot, but it makes for some pretty dramatic photos because it's such an iconic building. Here's one of the, actually, I think this is the first bat mitzvah I ever photographed. This is over by the beach in Santa Cruz at a smaller temple there. Again, different setup, smaller, your low angle. Here, this is a temple called Beth Am, which is in Los Altos here. Very open, a lot of ambient light coming in from those windows, a lot of wood and things. This is a wide angle shot. I like showing this temple because it's got a lot of ambient light and it's dramatic. So again, you have to kind of look at every venue and say, okay, how am I going to capture this and show it off? But then, as I mentioned, they're not always indoors at a temple. Here's one that was shot outdoors in the redwoods. I love when people do stuff like this and change it up because it makes it way more interesting for me as a photographer. Here, again, another outside. This is one. This is during COVID. This family did it all outdoors. They had beautiful weather. I love that I have the greenery in the background in a different kind of environment, which again, for me, makes it more interesting to capture in something different than the temple. And of course, COVID during the pandemic. I mean, now we're kind of back into the temple, which is great. And just starting to be no mask. Let's hope that stays. But, you know, for about a year, I was shooting in people's homes, which is really different, but also fun. You know, it was more personal. I got a chance to be inside the clients' homes. I could shoot something like this where they're literally standing in front of their fireplace. And again, as a photographer, you want to be able to sum up any environment and be able to shoot it. So you want to be ready to shoot indoor, outdoor, good light, bad light. Do you need to add light? So one of the things I would do for an event like this is I'd bring an LED light or remote flash, although typically they didn't want flashes going off, but I'd bring extra light if I needed it. But generally I'd go to their home in advance, look at it and recommend, gee, go this way because your window's on the left. So we'll side light her. So I would give them advice photographically based on the environment. This is another pandemic mitzvah. This was a beautiful wall that they built in the backyard so that they have a pretty backdrop for their Zoom. They were able to borrow the Torah from a temple locally, which is kind of cool. And again, how often you get this chance to actually get a dog at your bar mitzvah? So this family loves their mutt. And it was really funny because I was shooting in the back and I was able to walk around different areas. And I saw the dog sitting there and I saw grandfather kind of petting the dog. And so I focused on the dog as opposed to the kid there in the background because I just thought it was so great. I think I posted this and said a bark mitzvah, so kind of fun. Again, the challenge of shooting something differently during the pandemic. This family, I photographed all of their kids. This was their youngest daughter, last one. And they have this beautiful area here in the Bay Area. It's a gardens called Filoli Gardens. If you ever saw, I think it was one of the big shows on TV. I don't know if it was Dallas or whatever, but it was one of the shows where they had a giant mansion and they used Filoli as that mansion. And it's just an incredibly beautiful place. And they had this florist come and do the flowers behind her. And again, as a photographer, I love the challenge of kind of finding something different. But the goal of us as photographers, regardless of the location, is to tell the story of the day and show the joy. And this, you see that look in her face and you see that. I added this quickly in here. If anybody does want to get a hold of me, if you just point your cameras at this will give you all of my contact information. So if you just point your phone at it, it'll open up a link and give you all my contact information with my social media and my blog and email address and all that stuff. So if you have any questions, and I'll show it again later on. So different party venues. So it's not just the venues that for the service itself, but there's a lot of different party venues that you have to take in. And this is a challenge because a lot of clients will say to me, have you ever shot at this place? And if I say no, they're like, oh, darn. And I say, no, I love shooting new places. And a good photographer should be able to sum up any location quickly. So this one here is actually in the temple. So there's certain temples here where they'll convert the actual sanctuary to a party area, or in this case, this is a lunch area they have on the other side. So behind that wood wall in the background is where the synagogue is, but they'll do parties here in the evening or lunch parties in the afternoon. So that's in the temple. This is one I did about a week ago. And this is a party that was up in Sonoma in the wine country. And this is more of a wedding venue. It's inside a barn, which is kind of cool. And we'll talk about key shots like this. This is the Hora. So is this. This is in a hotel room. And so you get dark rooms like this one. You get bright rooms like the room you saw before. This was actually a more unique mitzvah where sometimes the kids are not into the whole DJ party dance scene. And so they're into sports. And this young man really likes sports. So they did this at a place called the Sports House. And you know, they did dodgeball and all kinds of crazy fun stuff. And so I actually got on a ladder and shot this picture of them. And the funny thing is I also, had them all lay down in that circle and I did a group shot that way, which is kind of fun. And when they did dodgeball, I would actually get in the middle of the dodgeball game with my camera and have pictures of them throwing balls at me and stuff. It was pretty fun to do. And I like to get wild and crazy. I love shooting at this venue because I can wear shorts and tennis shoes. So that's, for me, that's kind of cool. I did a bar mitzvah party at this place called the Hiller Aviation Museum. And in the back of the museum, outside in the parking lot, they have this old, I think it's a 747 cockpit, if I remember correctly. It's just the cockpit. Well, I had been there before. I knew the area. So I suggested to her and the three boys, why don't we go in there and do a photo? So I took a Canon 16-35 with a flash, went in there, and I shot this picture of them. Now, granted, there were no clouds in the background, but I told them when I shot this, like, you know what, I'm going to add clouds into the windows so you don't see like the building there, and make it more fun. So again, it was just a challenge, something different to do. And I love to kind of challenge myself and push myself to get something different every time. This is one of the larger parties I ever did. That's actually Charlie Puth, who is performing at a mitzvah. This is a bat mitzvah I did about 2.5 years ago for a family here in the Bay Area. That was really fun. And that venue was lit beautifully. It was incredible. Actually, the flowers there were completely out of, I mean, it was a different level than I normally shoot, where they really went all out, not only in the venue itself, but in the flowers. Like this here, this is the downstairs version of that, where the family was just like letting loose a little bit. I told them, like, raise your hands, have some fun. It was pretty awesome. Now this one here was in an old theater. This young lady was really into theater, and she actually sang a song from the balcony from Evita, I think. Anyway, this was for her hora. Really cool venue, something different. As soon as I got there and I saw the upper balcony areas here, I realized I could put my remote lights up there on light stands and fire down on her and the crowd. So figuring out where to put your remote lights is part of the challenge. And this was kind of a cool venue to show off something very old and stylish, but clearly very dark. So again, as a photographer, you have to be able to mitigate those rooms and figure out how to shoot them with proper lighting. Speaking of dark, I'll generally use 1 or 2 remote lights, different corners to fire, and I'll also have 1 flash on camera. So I use a combination of 3 lights to shoot the events. This was at the San Jose Art Museum. Never had photographed there before, and so I really love the uplighting they'd done on the ceiling and this cool artwork in the background. So as a photographer, I will tell the DJ which direction I want them to point the chair when the girl or boy is in the chair for the hora. And so I saw this background and thought, okay, that's kind of a cool direction to go. I set up my remote lights to fire light that direction so that I could then get her lit from the right direction, but also have kind of a cool background for me in the shot. Let's move forward here. Sorry, this is, I got a delay here on the, let's see if I can, come on. All right, so this venue, I love this venue. This is a very colorful venue. This is no longer in existence, but this was a place called Sparky's Hot Rod Garage. And just a lot of old stuff. They have an old diner and old gas pumps and old cars. And I just love the colors here. And so for group shots, which are fun to do, I'd again try to take advantage of the colors in the background and use that to my advantage. Now, here's another high-end mitzvah. This is in someone's backyard. I was looking at their home. They said, we're thinking about doing the party at our house in our backyard. And they said, what do you think? And I said, I like it. I like the idea. The problem is your pool is going to take up half your backyard. I don't know where you're going to do the party. And they said, no, we're going to build a stage area on the pool. So that's literally what they did. So what you're seeing here is scaffolding and stage built on top of their pool. I think they had scuba divers come in to build the truss underneath to hold it up. It was pretty incredible. This is a drone shot. I told them when they told me what they were going to do, I said, we got to take a drone and get a shot, which I did. And this is down on the, over the pool on the deck. And this is their son. Again, you'll see I've got a remote light on my left that's powered up at a higher power setting here. So I've got more light on this side of his face than this side to get more dynamic lighting. So I've got 1 light on each side. They also had their own stage lighting going, and I was overpowering that with my lights. Now, during the pandemic, when everybody moved outside, a lot of the parties ended up being outside. Now, this is that same young lady that you saw earlier with that big smile on her face when she was doing her bat mitzvah. And the party was over at the Ritz-Carlton in Half Moon Bay here in California. And I saw these rocks. They had given out these sweatshirts to all the girls. I saw these rocks and I said to the girls, let's do like your album cover. And they loved that idea. So we went out there and I just had them all like, have some fun. And that's a shot we got. And again, something very different than a typical mitzvah. Here's a family that unfortunately a lot of their family couldn't fly in. This was at the peak of the pandemic. They did the mitzvah in their home. The party was just a drive-by, I think it was coffee or ice cream. I think it was ice cream. And they gave a time slot for all the different families to drive by their home. They handed them ice cream. They said hi from their cars. So again, this was the height of the pandemic where you couldn't even really be near other people because no one knew what to do. So they held up pictures of all their family members. I love that. Just threw it in the backyard and took this picture. Very simple, but kind of fun. This one here, very innovative. This was a family, again, during the height of the pandemic, who decided, let's do a scavenger hunt for their kid for the party. So they rented this huge limo with sunroof and windows open and all that for ventilation. But they said, we're going to go all over our town and do a scavenger hunt. And one of them, the scavenger hunt, was to go into a supermarket. I don't remember exactly what they were supposed to look for. I think they were supposed to do selfies in the produce aisle or something. Well, the kids were there and I said, I just had a whim, said, I saw one of the kids walking down this aisle and I said, everybody grab your favorite cereal box and hold it up for me. And it was just me having fun with them and them having fun. And it's just something different. And so when I shoot, I like to have a good time. I don't want to be that stodgy photographer that's walking around like he's bored out of his mind. I like to enjoy it and kind of live it with them. And again, I think that's how you get great images back. So this was just me being me. For whatever that's worth, whether it's good or bad. But the family loved it. They saw this and they thought, oh, that's really fun and clever. So they were all good with it. Let me see. Tell the story. Sorry, let me just jump in here. So again, as a photographer, our job is to tell a story. And I tell my clients that it's not about me, it's about you. So capture the personality of the client. I'll meet with them. I'll learn who the kids are. If the kids are introverted, I treat them differently than if they're extroverted. Obviously it's great if they're into sports because I've shot the last 7 Olympics. I use that and I'll say, oh, I've shot, Michael Phelps and these guys, and they're like, wow, cool. And as a 13-year-old, if you can earn their trust, that's a big deal. As you can tell, I have a lot of fun with them. I know when to blend in and I know when to kind of stand back. So like for the service, you do not want to call attention to yourself at all. But during the party, if you want to be a ham a little bit, and I do, I insert myself into their family and I tell them this, I'm going to insert myself in your family. I'm being part of you. You're stuck with me all day long. And if you look at the image here on the bottom left, this is me with a family that was in their backyard during the pandemic. And, we had already done the formal shots. And I'm like, you guys, you're a nut. Your family was fun. I said, you guys are all nuts. Have some fun. And they started doing crazy stuff like this. And I love it. It shows their personality. And here's a shot. Actually, this shot was taken years ago. And this young lady, I was photographing her bat mitzvah, and her mom's like, how heavy is that camera? And so I handed it to her, and she goes, let me take a picture of you. So I showed her how to do back button, focus, all that. And she took this picture of me and her daughter. And so again, I really want to become part of their day so that I gain their trust and that they don't fight me, they kind of work with me. And a lot of times what I do is when I'm shooting, I turn the camera around. Like at the beginning of the day, 9 in the morning, I start taking portraits. I turn the camera around and say like, look how good you look. And they're like, whoa. Because what's happening is people are so used to images coming off their phone that they're not used to seeing the depth of field and bokeh and super crisp images that are lit correctly. So I try to earn their trust by just showing them, look what you look like. And even the shy boys will be like, oh, wow, that's pretty good. Now, you have to know the rules. When you're doing a mitzvah, bar bat mitzvah, you have to understand the rules. It is not a wedding. So every temple is different, but it's not a wedding. You can't run around. You can't go behind. You can't go over here, go over here. Most temples do not allow that. It is not a performance, is what they say. It's a service. So they want you in one position, usually in the back of the temple. They want you in silent mode, no flash. and you have to be very, very respectful of that service. So, behind me, you'll see that I've got a 200 to 400 Canon lens. Now, if you're a wedding or bar mitzvah photographer and you don't have a 200 to 400, I understand, because that's a very expensive lens. But because I also shoot a lot of stuff for like the Olympics, I have that lens, and it's great because I can shoot all the way at 400 millimeters at f4 from the back of the temple, or flip the teleconverter and go all the way to almost 600 millimeters. But it allows me to get really, really nice shots from the back of a temple. Now, you don't have to have that lens. You can easily do a less expensive zoom lens, but you want to have a long lens that lets you go to up to 400 millimeters if you can, to get really tight shots. But there is no running around. And if you do move around a lot, they will kick you out. So there's not a lot of lenience in these things. Here's my equipment list of what I use. I do use the Canon R3 and R6. Again, R3 I have because of my sports shooting. I do like it for portraits because it's got the grip. I can flip it around and do my portraits that way. But the Canon R6 is a great go-to camera for events, less expensive and really, really good. I do have 6 of the Canon 600 EXRT flashes, and I'll set up multiple on remotes, and I have one on each camera diffused with a MagSphere diffuser. My lenses, I have many of them listed there. The ones in red are ones I do not typically use for the mitzvah. I generally use one long zoom. For the party, I use the 70 to 200, the 24-70, and the 15 to 35. So super wide, mid, and a good zoom. Sometimes I'll use the 85-1.2. Sometimes I use a fisheye. And the fisheye I tend to use when I get kind of shot out. 4th hour of the party, it's the same 25 kids on the dance floor. I want to do something different. I've already photographed them 500 times, so I'll break out a different lens, try something different. I do use Manfrotto light stands, Magma diffusers. I do have Tiffin HT filters on the front of every lens, more just to keep them clean and keep them, protect the front element of my lenses. I use Gitzo tripods, Acrotech ball heads, Think Tank bags, Black Rapid straps. I use ProGrade digital memory cards and readers. And I use a MacBook Pro 16-inch for all my retouching. So that's kind of my equipment. Here's the settings. So when I'm shooting a service, I typically shoot in aperture priority unless I have a very consistent light source or lighting, but typically shoot in aperture priority around ISO 2500. Now this depends on the venue I'm shooting at. Some temples have more light than others, but typically around 2500 at around f4 with that lens I was talking about. I'm trying to get at least 100th of a second. So if you're in a really dark temple and you're at ISO 2000 and you're only at 20th of a second, then you're getting a lot of blur because any motion at all from those people is going to create blur. So I try to get 100th of a second, and I'll do whatever settings I can get to get there. I do use what's called double back button focus. I need to do a video on how to do this, but basically I set up my camera so that one button is face and eye detection, which is incredibly good on the Canon cameras. But in case that doesn't lock in for some reason, the next button over, which is the asterisk or the metering button, that one becomes my center point servo focus. So when I'm shooting a party, if I hit one button and it won't lock in on their face, I immediately jump to the second button, lock in with that one, and I'll go center point and get them in focus. For the party, I generally shoot manual. I'm generally around ISO 1600, again, depending on the ambient light in that room. Around 1600, around f4, sometimes 3.5. I'll shoot about 160th of a second with remote lights in the room. So I have off-camera flash and on-camera flash in combination. Generally, I'm using what's called group mode. So I've got a flash at around -1 on camera, TTL. And both of my remotes are set at manual power. So generally around 128th of power to maybe 164th, again, depending on the room and how much light there is. Also using double back button focus for that. The key shots. Now, I put this photo in here because it's not a key shot, but it is. Food is very important to Jewish people. So I put this in here. Here's your cream cheese lox bagel. You have to have that. But really the key shots for a mitzvah art, you want to do great portraits before. I like to do them outside the temple, in a courtyard or wherever, if there's any kind of decent foliage in that area, I like to do that first. And then I move in and I do pictures inside the sanctuary. If I'm taking pictures with the Torah, which is very, very important because that's a key element, you want pictures of holding the Torah, reading from the Torah, walking with the Torah, and then also family pictures in front of the Torah. So what I'll do is I'll get just the immediate family. So it might be the mitzvah kid with their brothers and sisters, mom and dad. Sometimes they'll request that grandparents or others are in there, but generally I just do the immediate family. Detail shots, kind of like you're seeing here. I'll do detail shots, especially at the party. The grand entrance, a lot of times when they do the party, they introduce the kid and they'll run into the room. The hora, which is the pictures you saw of the circle dance and the kids up in the chair, is probably the key shot for the party. I usually do a group shot, not always, but most of the time I'll do a group shot of all the kid and all their friends. Sometimes even you've seen that other picture where I did a group shot of all the adults and kids in one picture. A lot of times they'll do a montage where they will have a slideshow of all the pictures of the kid growing up. And so it's fun to isolate the bar bat mitzvah kid, watching them, their baby pictures, whatever, and they're laughing. So I'll use a 70 to 200 and kind of focus in on them to get that shot. And I'll show you that here in a second. The other thing is, and I tell people this, other photographers, make sure to be looking for the unexpected, because here's a list of your key shots, but there's a lot of other shots that are going to happen in between that you're not expecting, and those could be some of the best ones of the day. And as I mentioned before, I love trying something new every time. So here's the big, I don't know, maybe a month or two ago. This is before the service started. We're doing portraits of the family. I'm doing this out in front of the temple. I love this tree because I can use it as an element. And so the four of them, I said, hey, go behind this tree. And I kind of said, hold on here. And I love that shot of them. And they really enjoyed that too. Same family in a more traditional pose where I get them all close together. This one, you cannot shoot at f2.8. This one you have to shoot around f5.6 or f8 to get everybody in focus if you're zooming in really tight like this. And if you watch my presentation yesterday, we talked about that. Let's hold on here. We're not moving. Let's see if I can get this to advance. Bear with me here for a second. Sometimes PowerPoint with Zoom just doesn't advance correctly. So let's see if I can go back here. All right. So this is here reading from the Torah. This was shot with an f1.2 lens, 85 f1.2 RF lens from Canon, to separate him from the background. Different angles reading from the Torah. This was a young lady. I just shot this recently, and she was looking at her mom and dad. Now I had my remote light off to the right. That's why you're seeing the catch light in her eyes here and the light on her face. But I love the angle of the Torah versus kind of that straight on shot. It's kind of fun to just get that angle. Or even shooting up above them. And one of the cool things about the Canon R6 or R3, it has the screen that comes out. So I can lift the camera up above and tilt the screen down so I can see exactly what I'm getting. And with the eye detection, I don't have to worry about my focus. I can just lock in, hit the button to say, detect their eyes, and it locks in every time. So it makes this overhead shot way easier than trying to do this with the old 5D or 1D camera. Now, as I mentioned, it's not just the reading from the Torah, but holding the Torah. This is a good shot that you want to have. This is often one of the ones I will frame for the family and give to them. Really pretty. Here's the whole family in front of the Torah. This is taken, sometimes I'll take this with either 24-70 or a 15 to 35 wide lens. This is me getting down low to the table, so it kind of accentuates the Torah in front of them. I've got a remote light off to my right, lighting them. One of the things you want to be careful of when you're doing a group shot like this with a remote light is making sure that one person is not throwing shadow on the other person. So I'm real careful of that as I'm shooting these, because I've had many times where this young man here on this one side is blocking mom. Now here's a detail shot. The bar mitzvah boy had put the yod, this is the pointer or the yod, had put it down on the Torah. You're not supposed to touch the Torah with your hands because of the oil on your hands. And so you're supposed to use the pointer, and you put it down. I thought, oh, that's kind of a cool shot. So I shot this at really narrow aperture here with just the tip of the yod in focus. I just thought it was kind of cool and different. As I mentioned, the grand entrance. And this is that same barn that you saw the picture of from a week and a half ago, 2 weeks ago when I shot this. She ran in when they introduced her. I was using the 15 to 35 wide angle lens. with my remote flash behind me. I love this shot, just the joy on her face as she's running in. And that lit dance floor was really pretty cool too. So that actually worked to my advantage, having that floor. Here, I don't have any lit dance floor. I've got the cool wine barrels in the background. This is a place called Dominica Winery. And it was a Harry Potter theme. So she had her little thing with her, and she went up in the chair in that moment of excitement. I love the reaction that people's faces. Typically, when I shoot the horror, I like to shoot this with a wide lens, so I get all the other reactions, not just the kid in the chair. Again, that same mitzvah from a week and a half ago. This is the group shot. She does ballet, so she was able to be really flexible along with her friends. So they got down on the floor and did that. I'm like, cool, we'll shoot that. So, and you can see my light stand here. This is one light stand, which is throwing light behind them. I had another light stand to my right, and then again, the on-camera flash. Now, this is a young lady watching her montage. So again, this is where I like to key in on them and get their reaction. Usually it's them naked in the tub when they were 6 months old, or something embarrassing with their friends. If I get a chance to watch their montage ahead of time, so the family might give it to me and I'll project it off of my laptop. And if they Dropbox it to me, let's say a week before, and I can go ahead and look at it, I'll try to find those key moments, like, okay, 3 minutes in and 7 minutes in are kind of embarrassing moments. So I try to remember that so I can kind of look for these moments. I shoot these generally at 2.8 because I want her in focus. I don't really want everybody else as in focus as her. So I try to key in on the kids. And this is one of those times, as I mentioned before, where you want to find those elements that you weren't expecting. I didn't know that the dad was going to sing his daughter a song, and then he played guitar, but you have to be ready for that. And I've photographed bar and bat mitzvah where the photographer, if it's two kids, I'm focusing on one kid, and another photographer is focusing on a different family, and they leave for like 20 minutes. And I remember asking this one guy, why are you gone for so long? He goes, oh, they don't care about all this. All they want is this one shot. And I thought, but you missed so many great moments. And so you want to be ready for moments like that where you didn't know they're going to happen, but they do. And it is those unscripted candid moments that may mean the world to them, or forget them, even to me as a photographer. I want to capture those because really our job is to capture the story of the day and be ready for those moments. So let me see if I can, sorry. Here's a moment from a couple weeks ago again. This is in front of this one temple. I don't shoot there a lot. This one's up in San Francisco, but they have these cool doorways. And I thought she was standing, and I said, wait, stand right there. This will be a really cool wide shot. I shot this to silhouette her and decided to open it up in Photoshop a little bit, open the shadows just to show her a little bit more. This young lady, this was years ago. This little girl was absolutely hysterical. This is the DJ, and the DJ is kind of like working the crowd, and she comes over and starts working the DJ. And I just got down low as fast as I could and shot this. You could tell my remote light's going because you could tell the shadows are coming over from my left up over here. But I love the reaction on her face. And again, this is something that you can't plan. It's just going to happen, and you got to be there for it. And this one here, it's very rare. I don't know if I've ever seen a kid picked up like that at a mitzvah, but they picked him up and passed him around the crowd. And I just jammed over as fast as I could to get that shot. This is what I did with, it was a San Jose Sharks theme. I'm a hockey player. I shoot for USA Hockey at the Olympics. I love hockey. So I said to Sharky, are you going to go up on the chair too? And he kind of nodded. I'm like, cool. And so it was fun to get something different. Here's one really amazing because the kid actually stood up on the chair. I've never seen that before. That was, took a lot of cojones, but it was pretty neat to get it. So there's the business of photography. It's not just great shooting. If you think that great shooting is going to get you business, it's not. Shooting great is definitely part of it, but you need to market yourself and you need to build your brand and you need to think about this as a business. You have to be unique. You want to deliver fast. I always post images. I cull through everything. I post their gallery next day, usually by 1 p.m. So I like to over deliver every place I can. Know where your money is coming from. Know that you're surrounded by a bunch of people who are Jewish, who are prospective clients. Think about that as you're shooting. Secure your photos, back them up in a remote location. So I have all of my images on a Drobo that syncs to another Drobo a couple hundred miles away. So God forbid something have a fire at my house, I can then still have my images. And show off your work. Use social media, write a blog, use your website, and show off what you're shooting, because it is important as you're creating to do that. Sorry here. What I hear from my clients, I hear from them, oh, you know what, you're so much fun to work with. Everybody loved you. You put everybody at ease. You capture exactly who we are. And then they refer me to their friends. And if you notice, there is something missing in this list, which is, man, your photos were amazing. And I do get that, which is very complimentary, and I love that. But I get hired as much because I have fun with them. I put them at ease. I know how to relate to the kids. And that's as important, if not more important, than the actual photos themselves. Or it's how I get those photos, by kind of putting them at ease, kind of having fun with them, getting something unique like this. Like I said, I try to be unique. This is during the pandemic. This is in the temple, but no one was allowed in the temple. So it was mom and dad watching their daughter do her Zoom bat mitzvah. Using a a fisheye lens, which most people say, like, don't ever use a fisheye lens. Why not? Try something different, have some fun. This is me using a 15 to 35 and twisting the camera as I'm shooting, about a half-second exposure. I'm using an on-camera flash to freeze him and spinning the camera to get the ambient spin afterwards. Again, something different. Here, he had his own custom yod pointer. So I said, hold that out. I'm gonna focus on that. So I focused on that, made that the subject and not the kid. Yes, I will lay down on the ground and shoot up on people. I love doing this where they look down at me and I'll shoot up, facing up on them. Again, just having some fun. This shot here is just being ready for anything. So this particular photo was in their home for a Zoom mitzvah. The girl was doing her bat mitzvah. Their dog decided to go to the bathroom behind her. And I mean, bathroom behind her. It was a puppy. And I love it because this tells everything about the story. Dad's laughing about the fact that the dog is now pooping on their carpet. Mom and sister are freaking out. And if that doesn't say it all about dads and moms, nothing does. And this one here, this is in that same Filoli Gardens I told you about. It's just a beautiful location. And again, I've photographed this family for years and years and years. And I know them. I know they're nuts and fun. So I have fun with them. And I tell them, like, you know, come on, we got the formal shots. Let's light it up a little here. Speaking of lighting it up, I'd like to try something new. I took a tiny little LED light. I've got this little LED light that I threw under on the book and kind of hit it behind. And I turned it on and had it shine up on his face. I just did this about a month ago, just to try something different. I don't know, why not? I like to push the envelope a little bit. Here's my best tips. Put everyone at ease. Don't stress out. Be ready for everything. Think about your potential clients. Think about everybody's potential client. Could be grandma, because she might be trying to do it with another family member and helping them out and giving them advice. And always help the other vendors. I always provide images to the florist and the DJs and everybody else. Surprise your client. Like I said, I like to print, mat, and frame a picture and bring it to them as a gift, just to kind of over deliver all the time. Think of every attendee as a potential client. Even if they're not Jewish, they may own a business, or they may want, you know, they might be doing a quinceanera, or someone might be getting married. Show off your images same day if you're able to do that. Offer the images to the vendors. Shoot differently than everybody else, and shoot differently than every event you've done. In other words, keep challenging yourself to get better. If you're new, try Google AdWords. This is how I started. I bought the keyword of bar mitzvah, bat mitzvah, b'nai mitzvah, which is multiple, banot mitzvah, which is two girls, bar mitzvah party, bar mitzvah photographer, bar mitzvah photography. So you can buy those keywords and try to get business that way. Use your website as your banner. You know, my website is very purposely updated. When I get new images from a bar mitzvah I really like, they're up there within a couple of days. Be passionate about what you do. I'm hugely passionate. I mean, I make a good living doing this, but honestly, I do this because I really love doing it. And during the pandemic, it was interesting because the mitzvahs are almost our social life, if you will. We go to parties. I see a lot of the same families I photograph for, because there's so much referrals in this business, that I really missed seeing a lot of my friends and clients. And so when things started opening up again, it was like a breath of fresh air. One other piece of advice, wear ear protection. When you do a lot of these parties, whether it's weddings or bar mitzvahs, they have the DJs are cranking up your sound. I actually wear something you can buy on Amazon. They're called eargasms. They're like $40. They go in my ear and they kick down about 18 decibels of sound. The reason I say this is I've done so many bar mitzvah that I've lost a little bit of hearing. I went and had an audiologist measure me, and they said that I'm actually a hearing aid candidate now, even though I can still hear okay. Protect your ears while you can. So that's my advice. This is my shameless plug for my photo tours. We have a lot of them coming up. And if you want to know about any of my tours, just go to my website, just jeffcable.com, and you can see all of them listed. Or you can point to the QR code right here again, and that will give you all my contact information.